Welcome to Breaking the Ice. We're Patel, Greene & Associates, and we're here to tell stories about our three favorite things: business, culture, and engineering. Let's get to it. All right, well, welcome back to PGA's podcast, Breaking the Ice. Glad to see you again. For this episode, we are happy, honored to have Mark Isaak with us with Isaak Advisory Group. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Glad you can make it. I'm glad we worked this out. Mark is coming to us from Texas, and we worked it out timing-wise for him to do this podcast while he was here. And I'm excited to get into some of this. But before we get too far, I thought maybe give you a chance to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your background, a little bit maybe about our history, which extends quite a bit at this point.
Yeah. Well, I started working for PBS&J in Clearwater, Florida in 1985 after I graduated from college. And I was fortunate enough to grow with the company. So I was there for 27 years. During that time, I'm sure you're aware that Acton bought PBS&J. I think it was in 2010. But over the years, I progressed through positions, and I think I was always a pretty good engineer, but I was more interested in the business side of things, about how we decided to go to the Atlanta area when we first broke out of Florida. I followed E&R back then. So I was kind of like not a square peg in a round hole, but I was just kind of an oddity to an engineering firm. At the first office I worked at was Clearwater. John Zomalt was the office manager. And I was really fortunate because I would ask him all these silly questions about growth, and he tolerated me. And he didn't treat me like a civil engineer, like a business person. So, I eventually PBS&J asked me to move from Tampa to Austin. We had just bought a firm there, and they had a small transportation group, and I went there to lead that. Eventually, I left Atkins and went to work at a small firm in Austin, and eventually did the same thing for JMT, where I was the first person in Texas, and we grew a group. And after that, it was like 7 years ago, I said, I really want to do this growth stuff full time. So I started the Isaak Advisory Group, and we focus on helping small and mid-sized firms get through growth barriers. And you and I both worked at a time, and were we in Bartow at the exact same time together?
Yeah. I started at DOT District 1, of course, and when that sort of ran its course and I needed a job, go back to episode 1 if you want more details on that.
I didn't realize that you actually worked at the district.
Yeah, I was OPS right out of high school, and OPS, for those of you who don't know, it's meant for summer employees.
Okay, like
but
an internship?
But they stretched the money and borrowed from other departments and stretched me for a good year, really through the next summer. But then it was like, I got to get a real job at DOT, and it didn't work out there. And my brother-in-law had already started at PBS&J, and of course I knew him, I knew Dave. And they got me a job at PBS&J. So I was a shoe-in, I think, or at least I felt like I'm good here. They were telling me that anyway, but they still made me interview with you because you were the office manager, which I can still remember. I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember going into your office, and I definitely remember printing that resume out and bringing all that to you. Which I think about young Gordon, I'm like, but that's pretty good of me to not be cocky enough to go, well, I got this job, but I guess I can talk to this guy like I'm gonna.
You came in full gas.
Use the opportunity. And
I've told the story many times over the years that whenever I interviewed somebody who I thought was exceptional, whether we hired them or not, maybe we didn't get them, I always had a hanging file, and I put people's resumes in there. And eventually we ended up hiring some of the people that we didn't hire the first time around. But you were in that file, and it's a great memory.
Yep. Yeah. So that was 24 years ago. Just about. Yeah, almost exactly.
So I had some hair, is what you're saying.
You had more hair. I did too. But yeah, so that was PBS&J in Bartow where our paths first crossed. But I was entry level CAD tech, and you were running the office. But the cool thing about that Bartow office was, even though even at the time PBS&J was a very large company, it didn't feel that way to us. We had our little Bartow world, and of course you had created a great culture there. You learning from John and others. How to do that. And I really enjoyed working there. I enjoyed all my whole time at PBS&J because, like we, I know Hiron and I talked about this on our first podcast, that even over in the Tampa office, which was, by the time had become the headquarters, it was a very big office, for any engineering firm, but certainly the biggest office for PBS&J, I think. It still felt that way. It was really cool. So we've always held on to that, idea that just because you get bigger doesn't mean you have to lose the culture. It might get a little harder to do it. It's pretty easy with the right people to do when you're smaller. But you can still do it if you set things up that way.
Yeah.
When you get bigger.
Professionally, you grow up together. You actually are friends.
Right.
Just happen to be coworkers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. That's a good way to look at it. Our paths crossed again. I think there was probably a few years there where maybe kept up with each other on LinkedIn or whatever. But paths crossed again when we've got PGA going and trying to develop strategic plans. And we had developed our first one in 2018 and it initiated in 2019. And we had John Zumwalt help us with that. And I can't remember. I feel like you might have tipped us off to John. I can't remember how we figured out that he was doing that work. He had sort of in his semi-retirement was doing it, with Crossroads. And that was a really good experience. And we worked through that plan. It was a good plan. And when we had completed that one, we were ready to do the next one, reached back out to John. And what he told me, I think, verbatim was he's trying to be a full-time grandpa or something like that. Maybe that's not verbatim, but that was the gist. It was his polite way of saying, I don't want to do it again. Because, he wanted to be a grandpa, so that's cool. But I think maybe he mentioned you, but I'd already, at the time, I already knew what you were doing. So we were working together some. And so I guess I want to give him, I guess the idea was that y'all would work together.
Yeah, we did.
But then he just sort of dropped off because he's winding down.
Grandfather.
But it worked. Yeah, it worked out great. So then we really pulled you in on that second strategic plan. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. Maybe you can get into some of like your philosophy behind strategic planning. I'll probably spend a little bit of time because we've done the two, but we do have some. Although yours and John's philosophies are probably very much alike, but they're not identical. And certainly your approach to these, what we found was they're a little bit different. So I can kind of compare and contrast that a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your philosophy behind that.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be in management and leadership at PBS&J for 3 cycles of the 5-year plan. So basically 15 years. I was either involved in developing some of the parts of it, being on the team, or later on, I was actually held accountable for hitting those things. And as you know, PBS&J was really good at doing plans and really good at assessing them afterwards. And sometimes we assessed. I remember one time we had a plan. It was every goal was we had an A and then an F and then an A and then an F. And it was because we kept growing transportation, we kept growing land development, but we didn't get into those emerging clients that we talked about during the planning session. So I was exposed to that, and I was also pretty frustrated with the industry in general about how they kind of make fun of strategic planning. And it's kind of a passion of mine about let's put together a strategic plan. Let's get the right people in the room. Let's focus and make it practical for where the company is now and where the company's going. A lot of the times back in the 90s, early 2000s, there was a bunch of team building and trust falls and so. And really, I think it should be focused on what's in front of the company and what are they dealing with, and on a strategic level. One of the main things that we start off with is who should be in the room, and you guys did a great job with that, because my philosophy, or philosophy of the company, is, first of all, you want to bring management and leadership, people who have the ability to implement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you also want to bring in a diversity of personalities. So if you have a bunch of dreamers, you'll come up with a big pie in the sky plan that probably will never get accomplished. If you have nothing but bulletproofers in the room, they will pull down and say why you shouldn't do anything. Right. So you got to have a good blend, and then you got to have that mutual respect between the dreamers and the bulletproofers. So they have a working relationship where they've been doing this tug of war, but they respect each other and they move forward, not as fast as maybe a dreamer would want, but not as slow as the bulletproofer would want.
Right. Well, I'm probably in the dreamer category.
Definitely.
And I think,
but in a good way.
I hope so. I think we do have. I mean, I can name a couple bulletproofers right off the bat. But I think your point about mutual respect and being on the same page is really important, because when the dreamers like, we should do this and this and we can do it, come on, we can do it, they want to achieve that thing. And although we might try to think of the risks, and in those rooms we're even talking about the risks, it's easy for the dreamer to go, well, it's not that big risk, because they want everybody to say, yeah, let's do the thing that they want to do. But when there's that mutual respect and you got someone over there that also wants to achieve the thing, they're not just trying to be a wet blanket. They really do want all the goals to be achieved, but they see that risk maybe sometimes for worse than it is, but they certainly see it for what it is. They're not going to take it too lightly, whereas I might be tempted to do that. And I might even try to convince them that it's not a big deal. But when that respect is there, they don't just go, okay. They'll come back. Yeah. Which is good. Those are good conversations.
That's the second thing that I would talk about, is that sometimes we say that don't let how you're going to do the plan get in the way of creating the plan, because a lot of times the bulletproofer types will ask a question with the best of intentions. Well, how are we going to, and so we say, we're going to talk about what, not the how. Yeah. How is for later. And that kind of sets the tone that we're going to push back and talk about risks and stuff. And are we going after too much in this cycle, that kind of thing? But we're not going to solve how we're going to implement it, because that kills every meeting, because engineers can get down into the technical people, scientists, environmental, and get down into the details pretty quick.
Yeah. What I did find that some of the folks in that room, so when we do the next one, to keep this in mind, that is a good practice, because otherwise we'd have never gotten out of that room. But some feedback I got was, with those instructions, they found it hard to contribute, because they, as engineers, they want to dig into the how. That's who we are. So I made a mental note of that, and I'm like, okay, so we need to think about that.
Maybe we should let people have a time to say, here are the challenges with that strategy, and then just put them up, write them down. Right. But we're not going to solve.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't expect answers.
One of the things that I think about too is, from a 30,000 foot view, is the people in the room need to know, who the company is and where they're going. What are we trying to do at a high level? It's not the place where you start, defining who you are, unless you're an absolute startup and it's their first strategic plan. Right. So, but the other thing is that I like to look at strategic plans as a project, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a scope of work. That's the actual document that we look at. It has the 3 to 5 goals. And then you have a schedule. 5-year schedule,
Mm.
right? And, we talk about, is this a first year goal or is this a 4th year goal? We kind of rank them that way. And so that's the schedule. And then the budget is a strategic hire, marketing campaign, whatever resources you're going to need to implement that plan, that's your budget. And then finally, when you have a project, you regularly meet on that project, right? And we certainly have done that.
Yes. Monitor your progress. See how you're doing. Yeah. So I thought, maybe this is a good opportunity because it speaks to your philosophy on things anyway. When we did the one with John, we ended up with a nice book, and it was actually one of, I think, Katie's first tasks as our marketing director was, hey, here's this Word file with some typos and not particularly well formatted. Can you make this better? And she did. It was great. And there's a lot of good information. There's like background on the company, and it was like a literal book with a spine and everything.
Oh yeah,
and of course it had, yeah. It was beautiful. We were really proud of it. And it certainly served its purpose. And it being the only one we ever had done, when we went through the process for the second plan with you, we kind of expected we'd do the same thing. And you sent us 4 pages.
Right.
Hey, Mark, is this like the beginning when are we into the book after this? And
this is the executive summary.
and that you explain your approach with that, which is no, this is it. This is all you need. All that other stuff, you're gonna figure that out.
That's
now.
the how.
Y'all are gonna figure that out. That's the how, exactly. So we did, of course, take that and we made it look real nice, and we organized it. And it's a bifold. So we went from the book to the bifold, which is a lot easier to share anyway. So maybe, speak like, why is that? Why do you think that's more effective?
Because the next 5 years, we're going to go into that bifold and we're going to say, what does it take to implement that first goal? And they're going to be, it might be 8, 10 people involved in that one goal, that not doing things, but actually leading parts of it. Like it's it might be a big thing. And basically that can be used as a recruiting tool. I've really pushed our clients to do that. You go to lunch with a strategic hire that you want to hire, and you pull out that strategic bifold, and you, in one action, you show them that you know who you are and where you're going.
Yeah.
And when you're 40 people and you do that, the person who's worried about coming to work at a small firm, suddenly they're not so worried, right? So, and when you show that to your employees, this is what we're doing. And I'm not saying that it should be laying around in the lobby at the office, because it is confidential and it's your plan. But the staff, management, leadership should know all about it. You should use it as a recruiting tool, and it's nice and tight. And then the second part of that is we're going to have a meeting, right? And I don't know what your reaction the first time I suggested that we were going to have a meeting about the strategic plan.
I think we said no problem. We'll just add to the meeting we're already having. I think we started, because I was going back and looking for meeting notes for something else I'm doing on this, and I went way back, and I was in our previous strategic plan.
Well,
and I was like,
I don't know if you remember, the first thing that I did for PGA was I took John's that booklet, and I created my version of that, which was a bifold, and it was I think that was when
that's probably it. Yeah,
we first started the vision meeting.
Yes, I think you're right.
And I have actually stole your idea about using the strategic plan as the meeting agenda, which is brilliant.
I'm not sure if I got that from somewhere, if it just seemed to make sense to me. But what easier way to walk through the plan than to make that your agenda, I guess.
Yeah.
It's worked.
Yeah. And what we typically see is that when you do this, you have the first meeting, right? And sometimes it's quarterly, and I don't think you're doing it every 2 months.
It's like every 2 or 3. Yeah. We always end up bumping it once or twice anyway, it seems like.
Invariably, the first meeting, everybody comes and no one's done anything.
Yeah.
And I always try to make sure that there's one person that has actually done their stuff, so that you get that like uncomfortable feeling on the team that, oh, we're actually going to meet and we're going to talk about
Yeah,
this.
your name is on here.
Right. And, it's miraculous. The next meeting, everybody's got their items done, and the plan starts making progress. Yeah, you guys have a great track record of that.
I know when we started the new plan that you helped us with, I had it set up as bi-monthly or quarterly or whatever, and with the plan broken down into agenda form like you're talking about, and I think we made it through halfway through the first goal. I'm like, okay, this ain't gonna work. I'll see y'all next month. And we did it monthly until we got all the way through.
Right.
And then you're just updating in progress. And some of this is just basic, like you say, it's a project. This is basic effective project management.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you have the meeting and everybody's gung ho, sure, I'll take care of that. And then as soon as the meeting's over, they're going back to their emails. So what I got in the habit of doing, especially if there were a lot of action items, it felt like there was a lot of work assigned during this meeting, I'll follow it up with an email and say, Joe, here's the stuff you said you did, all the way, everybody that had assignments in an email boiled down into action items. And that's been pretty effective also.
Another thing that happens, and we've certainly experienced this at the meeting, is, well, something completely fell apart and we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
The market changed, or a client is not outsourcing anymore, whatever the reason. We have to pivot, right, and change. And it's not that the plan gets smaller. It's what, do we replace that with something else?
Right.
Or do we just let it die on the vine? Right. And the other thing I would say about from a 30,000 foot is, why would we let the market pick where our company's going? That's what happens when you chase RFPs, is you're at the whim of the marketplace. And there's something to be said that you have to chase projects. I don't have a problem with that. But if we had a plan that we knew what kind of work we're going to get into, what we're going to expand into, when we see it, we're going to jump on it, because we've been talking about it for 3 years, right? And your chances of winning that new work is a lot better because you've done all the ground pre-positioning. And
yeah, it really helps decision making, because like you say, we go in there and we say, okay, well, this one, we got a lot going on in 2025 already, so let's not try to do that too. We'll put it in 2026 or 2027. Well, then lo and behold, late 2025, something comes up that is exactly what that is. Some opportunity falls in your lap. You don't say, well, can't do it, it's 2027. You go, well, we already decided we wanted to do it. We just got the timing wrong.
Right.
Let's go.
That's right.
Knock it off. And sometimes that might mean, well, we haven't really started on this other thing. Well, we can just, maybe we'll bump that. We'll just in that case, you kind of in a way let the market, it's probably, I guess that's more fate than the market, but
it's opportunistic.
You just take opportunities as they come.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a plan that lays out all the things you want to accomplish, you won't identify the opportunity for what it is when it comes to you. So that's happened to us multiple times.
You will pounce on that because you've talked about it. It's in your plan. It might not be the timing that we talked about, or that we predicted, but you'll know it's an opportunity and jump on it.
Yeah. All right. So let's transition a little bit into I guess maybe your experience working with PGA. For the 14 years we've been in business, while we are consultants and we advocate for the use of consultants, we have rarely used consultants here for the work that we do. Other
you
things,
mean like advisory consultants?
Consultants to us, to like business, I guess, type consultants, but not just strategy stuff, but marketing and graphics and stuff like that. It's always been our, I guess, approach that we'll just do. We'll bring the talent in, and we will always do it better ourselves than somebody that doesn't know us. And with a rare exception, we did have our website redesigned, and we had a consultant help us with that, only because some of that is beyond our expertise. I'm not going to hire a website designer just for one week. Obviously, that's
once every 5 years.
Yeah. And we run those people through the ringer because they think they're just going to come in, with a bunch of people that don't really know what they want and give them something and go on about their day. And they are sorely mistaken when they come to PGA, because we know exactly what we want. We just can't quite do the whole thing ourselves.
Yeah.
And you will do it the way that we want to do it. And we got there with a website and it looks great, but they earn their money on that thing. And so when it came to strategic planning, that's kind of a weird thing, because we have some strategic thinkers, and we probably could have put some sort of plan together, certainly on the second round, because we kind of been through it. But the thought never really crossed my mind, because that, in my mind, is one example of you need an outside perspective. You can get even if you have the best people in the room that have a diversity of thought and are like perfectly comfortable sharing their opinions, you still have a bit of an echo chamber. Like you need someone to come in, and I think with an outside perspective to facilitate the whole process. But I think you will say your experience was good, but also maybe different than some other firms that you've helped, in that we knew what we wanted to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was a matter of facilitating the choices and not generating stuff. It was not generating from scratch. A lot of times we facilitate strategic planning, and the company has an idea of what they want to do, but they actually think the facilitator is going to
strategize
for them. So that's actually a tough meeting, because it might be a completely different segment of our industry that I don't know about.
Sure.
And I'm there to facilitate, like you said, the great brains in the room, throwing ideas out and organizing them.
Well, and asking great questions, like making us think about our strategy, because you may end up guiding it some through your good questions and your facilitation, which is what we'd be wanting you to do. But passively, I guess, is the way. Like, we know what we want, but we don't want to. We want to lean on your experience for one thing. You're not a strategic planner from, I don't know, some other industry that doesn't really know about transportation, especially in the public, which you do. I mean, you know that you've done that your whole career. So it was a really good experience for us to have you involved, and maybe the sole example of us using a consultant with absolutely no regrets.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I didn't know I was on such thin ice. Actually, it's like, I think that's one of the whole differentiators with our company, is that we are practitioners. We've done what you're doing at large companies, at middle-sized companies. So, it kind of comes naturally to us. And I think, given my background and our shared background, I can ask some questions that are provocative, and you might say, oh, I'm not going to just discard that question because I've known Mark for a long time.
Right.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't say that we have very many instances like that with PGA. It's like the people have come. It's really a matter of sorting the opportunities out and then putting them to a schedule.
I think the last thing we had on here was just about taking it seriously. Like you mentioned, it's probably somewhat discouraging for you to help a company put a strategic plan together and come back 3 years maybe to check on them and find out it's sitting on a shelf. They never touched it. It was a total waste of your time and their time. That also never crossed my mind to do it that way. That seems silly to us. So we've always been very proud of, we put the plan together, we break the thing down, we meet regularly, and
get it done.
Getting the thing done it's not an option.
I mean, didn't you guys like finish your first one in like 3 years?
Yeah, I think after so we developed it in 2018, so we started in 2019. So it was supposed to go from 2019, I guess, through 2023, and we started our next one in 2020. So I guess in 4 years, basically in 4 years. But we were pretty much done in 3. I think we only had a few straggling things in that 4th year. And we also were developing the next plan in the 4th year, so that it started in 2023.
And so to speak directly to what you brought up is that firms, there's so much damage a strategic plan can do to the morale of the company. If you, let's say you have a 200 person company and you invite 20 people to do the facilitation and to do the actual planning session, they go through it and they get fired up. They're excited about it because it sounds really good. And then what happens? Nothing. They get cynical about strategic planning. They get cynical about the company, right? And you guys are a poster child against that. I mean, it's people know that things are going to happen. They come to the meeting and they know they're going to be asked, "What's your progress on this?" And we got to finish our plan in 5 years. This last plan you guys did is really a transformational plan, in my opinion, because you're going from where you were to this really statewide, and now you've left the state, and that was one of the goals.
Well, it was to be ready to do it, but I mean,
Yeah,
to our point from a few minutes ago, like
you've hit it.
we kind of like you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. So when we were developing this plan, that topic came up pretty early on. What do we want to include getting outside of Florida in this plan? And we decided, no, let's dominate the state of Florida. That was our terminology before we start getting out of the state. So maybe our plan,
So this is a great example of the opportunistic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because
we all agreed, well, that'll be the next plan. We'll dominate here. That'll be the next plan, but definitely the next plan. So it wasn't like 20 years from now, we'll see how it goes. It was, we'll definitely have that in the next plan. Well, then Richard says, I'm going to Tennessee, and we go, well, we love Richard. We don't want you to leave, and having you work like purely remote seems kind of like it wouldn't have, I don't think, fit for him long term. And we know we want to do it anyway. So the timing's not exactly.
But Tennessee is a good market too.
Well, I can't tell me how many times we told this story while we were up there meeting T-Dot folks, that we look like geniuses. We are certainly not geniuses. We had pure luck. It was just his family decided now is their time to move to Tennessee, not based on T-Dot work program, based on what they wanted to do.
Right.
And we get there and get ready to okay, let's meet some people. And lo and behold, T-Dot's going through some big changes and their work program's increasing. And we're sitting there looking like time is just right.
It was in the plan. Part of the plan. Yeah. And so those are the positive and momentum aspects of actually talking about living the plan and doing it. The other side of that is you do nothing and the people resent it.
Yeah.
And then, again, one of my passions is, why are people cynical about strategic planning? There's your answer.
Yes.
And I have had clients, I actually started saying, do you really want to spend this money? Because, but when someone starts bringing up that they want to double in size, they don't have a strategy. They just want a number, right?
Right.
Whether it's revenue or people. To me, that should be an outcome of your plan.
Yes.
Right. And so I get a little wary about those kind of engagements because, let's say we put together a plan and it sits on the shelf. Guess what? They badmouth the consultant. They helped them.
Your plans suck, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think one thing we haven't really talked about that I feel like we do a pretty good job here at PGA is really bringing the whole company into, like, we meet regularly as a vision committee and we break it down and we try to get some things accomplished, but we also provide updates to the whole company we have a quarterly staff meeting. So that's always really the first thing in every staff meeting is kind of an update on where we're at. Really with that year's goals, we don't go through the whole plan, but we do obviously have annual goals that are pulled in from the strategic plan, and everybody knows what those are. And I think folks appreciate kind of knowing where we stand on it, and that we are making progress. And there was a point in us talking about it and setting the plan, and we're doing we're making progress and getting there.
And what better way to build planning into your business culture than to come up with a strategic plan when you're 40 people, and then have another one when you're 120 people, 5 years later and have that be part of your business culture. Of course, that was kind of a PBS&J. Of course, we're going to do another plan because it's part of our culture that we do that. And you guys started that a lot earlier than most firms.
Yeah. Culture is huge with a lot of things like that. When we talk about quality, which I know we're not talking much about today, but sometimes we're noted for quality. Humble brag, I guess. But internally, there's no like, should we or shouldn't we? Like, it's just part of the.
It's like breathing.
Of course, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
That's just, you do it, and then you QC it, and then you submit it. What other way is there? And yeah, hopefully, years from now, and even Hiron and I are gone, and other leaders, like we move on to the next generation of leadership, it'll just be like, well, of course we're going to update the plan. Like, that one's done. We got to do the next one. What else would we do? Yeah, that should be the goal.
And like that, in some ways, didn't the leadership and training program come out of like strategic planning? Is about, I don't know if it was around retention of existing staff or training and developing staff.
It's more training and developing, because now this was the first plan. Yes, it was one of the last goals we did, but we got it done. Even then, part of the goal was freeing up time from company leadership. So how do you do that? Well, someone's got to get trained up and come up to do the things that they're doing. And so that was the basic idea, was to get that done.
Absolutely.
But of course, leadership didn't have enough time to set the thing up. We'll have to talk to Chris Smith about that in a future podcast episode, I think. But yeah, that was part of that. And of course, that goal carried over in other manifestations in the second plan. How do we free up company leadership to do some of the things on this plan?
Yeah, that's always a challenge, because
I'm not sure how successful we've been in that.
As founders and owners, you're either working in the company or you're working on the company, and you got to find time to work on
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Does podcasting count as working on the company?
Sure.
Good.
Especially after 5.
All right. Anything else on your mind?
I think we've covered the things that I wanted to mention, and the experience I've had with PGA. I think we brought out the things that it's really a pleasure working with you and your team, because you get after it. And as a consultant, we want our clients to be successful, and you guys are like a poster child for that.
Yeah. I think that's why I appreciate you being a part of it. You're a dreamer like me, so we can dream up a bunch of stuff, and we'll let Joe shoot us down, and we'll get to the real answer somewhere in between those two things.
I kind of changed that to red light, green light, yellow. Yeah. And I'm a green all the time. Yeah. Green. So are you?
I think Joe's like a deep, dark yellow.
He's
like burnt umber, something like that.
Yeah, definitely not a red, but definitely in the yellow.
Wish Joe was here. Make sure he listens to this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up our time here. I really appreciate you coming and speaking with me on this stuff, and all the way from Texas.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. It's we really enjoy working with you. I look forward to many more years.
Okay. Me too.
All right. So that'll do it for us here at Breaking the Ice. We'll see you next time. We always end these podcasts with a solid Go PGA, and we try to say it at the same time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Go PGA!